On January 13, 2011, a cargo ship named the MT Emerald submitted a bill to the Nigerian government. The captain claimed he had just docked in Lagos. He claimed he had offloaded 15,000 metric tons of premium motor spirit petrol. He presented a bill of lading. He presented a Navy clearance certificate. He presented a signature from a harbor master. Based on these documents, the Central Bank of Nigeria paid the fuel importer 1.5 billion naira as a subsidy claim. There was just one problem. At the exact moment the captain claimed to be unloading fuel in Lagos, satellite tracking data from Lloyd's List Intelligence showed the ship was nowhere near Nigeria. The ship was 3,000 miles away, docked in the port of Rotterdam. The ship in Lagos did not exist. The fuel did not exist. But the payment was real. This was not an error. It was a system. In 2011 alone, Nigeria paid for 59 million liters of fuel per day, but the country only consumed 35 million liters. The difference, 24 million liters a day, was paid to ghost ships. You are watching Historic Capital. This is the story of the subsidy heist. To understand the crime, you must understand the mechanism. Nigeria is the largest oil producer in Africa. Yet, it imports almost all its refined petrol. Why? Because the 4 state-owned refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri and Kaduna have been deliberately sabotaged for decades. If the refineries worked, there would be no need to import. If there is no need to import, there is no subsidy fraud. Therefore, the refineries must not work. Here is the loop. 1. The government fixes the price of petrol at the pump, for example, 65 naira in 2011. 2. The cost to import petrol is higher, for example, 540 naira. 3. The government promises to pay the importer the difference. This difference is called the subsidy. It was designed to help the poor. But the elites realized it was a blank check. If you bring in 1 ship of fuel, you get paid. If you claim to bring in 1 ship, you get paid. If you bring in 1 ship but claim it is 3 ships, you get paid 3 times. The agency responsible for verifying these claims was the PPPRA, Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency. Between 2006 and 2011, the number of licensed fuel importers jumped from 5 to 128. Construction companies started importing fuel. Furniture companies started importing fuel. Companies registered 3 days ago started importing fuel. They were not energy experts. They were experts in paperwork. The most sophisticated method of theft was called round-tripping. Here is how it worked. A vessel, let's call it Ship A, loads refined petrol from a mothership offshore in Cotonou or Lomé. It sails to Lagos. It obtains a shore tank certificate verifying it offloaded 10,000 tons. The government pays the subsidy. Now Ship A is supposed to go back to Europe to get more fuel. It doesn't. It sails back out to the ocean, turns off its transponder and waits for a few days. It changes its paperwork. It creates a new name. It returns to Lagos. It presents the same fuel it just offloaded or never offloaded as a new cargo. It gets certified again. The government pays the subsidy again. 1 cargo of fuel could be paid for 3 or 4 times. In 2011, the Nigerian government budgeted 245 billion naira for subsidy payments. By the end of the year, they had paid out 2.6 trillion naira. That is 10 times the budget. The central bank governor at the time, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, raised the alarm. He asked a simple mathematical question. How did Nigeria's population stay the same? The number of cars stay the same, but our fuel consumption suddenly doubled in 12 months. The answer was simple. We were not consuming the fuel. We were consuming the fraud. In 2012, the anger on the streets boiled over. The Occupy Nigeria protests shut down the country. The House of Representatives was forced to act. They set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the subsidy regime. The chairman of the committee was a man named Farouk Lawan. He was known as Mr. Integrity. He was small in stature, but he promised to bring down the giants. He invited the biggest oil marketers in the country to testify. Femi Otedola, Zenon Oil, Aliko Dangote, the directors of the NNPC. The hearings were televised. Nigerians watched in shock as Lawan exposed the rot. He discovered that 15 importers had collected billions without importing a single drop. The committee wrote a report. It indicted several companies. It demanded the refund of 1.7 trillion naira. It looked like justice, but the cartel does not fight with lawyers. They fight with cash. On the eve of the report's release, Femi Otedola claimed that Farouk Lawan approached him. He claimed Lawan demanded a $3 million bribe to remove Zenon Oil from the indictment list. A sting operation was set up. Video footage was released. It showed Mr. Integrity, Farouk Lawan, accepting a stack of dollars, $620,000 in cash. He was seen stuffing the money into his pockets and into his cap. The narrative shifted instantly. The story was no longer about the 1.7 trillion naira theft. It was about the $620,000 bribe. The report was discredited. The prosecution stalled. The ghost ships sailed away. Farouk Lawan eventually went to prison. But the architects of the ghost ship system, they kept their licenses. The private importers were greedy. But the biggest thief was the government itself. Enter the NNPC, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. The NNPC is the only company in the world that loses money selling oil. How? Through a system called DSDP, direct sale, direct purchase. Since the refineries don't work, NNPC allocates crude oil to foreign traders, like Trafigura or Vitol. In exchange, these traders are supposed to bring back refined petrol. It is a barter system. Crude oil goes out, petrol comes in. But who checks the math? If you send out $100 million worth of crude, you should get $100 million worth of petrol, minus fees. But audit reports consistently showed that the value of petrol returning was far less than the crude leaving. Billions of dollars vanished in the swap. This system allowed the NNPC to declare that it was under-recovering. They deducted their cost directly from the oil revenue before it even reached the Federation account. This is why, in some years, the NNPC remitted 0 naira to the central bank despite oil prices being high. They claimed they spent it all on subsidy. They spent it on ghost ships. Why does this matter today? In 2023, the new government announced subsidy is gone. The price of fuel jumped from 190 naira to 600 naira, then to 1000 naira and above. And Nigerians were told they had to suffer because the subsidy was unsustainable. And it was unsustainable. You cannot spend 90% of your revenue servicing a fraud. But here is the tragedy. The people paying the price today are not the people who stole the money. The mechanic in Ibadan paying 900 naira for a liter is paying for the ghost ships of 2011. The market woman in Kano paying triple for transport is paying for the mansions in Maitama built with subsidy loot. The removal of the subsidy exposed the nakedness of the economy. Without the artificial cushion, inflation destroyed the naira. But notice one thing. No asset recovery was launched against the subsidy thieves of 2012. The 1.7 trillion naira, worth $10 billion at the time, was never recovered. That money is now sitting in the London real estate market we discussed in our last video. It is sitting in the Dubai high-rises. The debt stayed in Nigeria. The capital fled abroad. The ghost ship scandal is the perfect example of the Nigerian paradox. The country is rich in resources, but the state is captured by a criminal enterprise. The subsidy was not an economic policy. It was a distribution mechanism for the elite. It was how they shared the national cake. They didn't need to drill oil. They didn't need to build factories. They just needed a printer, a fake bill of lading, and a friend at the PPPPRA. The refineries in Port Harcourt are still being turned around. Billions are spent on their maintenance every year. They produce nothing. Because if they produce, the ghost ships cannot sail. This is not incompetence. This is strategy. This investigation into the oil sector connects directly to the banking sector and the real estate sector. It is one giant ecosystem. If you want to understand how the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, used the exchange rate to finish the job that the subsidy thieves started, you need to subscribe. We are preparing the Emefiele files. Leave a comment below. Do you remember the Occupy Nigeria protests? Were you there? Tell us your story. You are watching Historic Capital. Follow the money.